This is lecture 16 of our presentation, and this is characteristics of a good research design. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have entered the 16th lecture of this course or 16th lecture of this series, which has the title Characteristics of a Good Research Design. Because in the last lecture we had discussed the research design and how crucial and how important the research design is. So, it is also necessary to discuss what could be the characteristics of a good research design, because as we had discussion in the previous lecture, if the research design is not good, then implementation of our research problem is going to be full of hurdles. And if the research design that we have adopted is good and it has those characteristics which a good research design should carry, then the researcher will proceed in the implementation of this research problem, in the research pursuit, without any hurdle, smoothly. So, this is why a discussion on the characteristics of a good research design is very necessary. So, what are those? A good research design benefits from using multiple data collection methods. Why? Because it minimizes the faults, if any, the limitations, if any, in the data collection. It's a kind of rather confirmation. It's a kind of verification of the quality of the data. However, this increases the cost, time and complexity, because every method will have some limitations. So, it is there, but despite that, if the researcher uses the multiple data collection methods, then they should not only increase and boost the confidence, but also reliability of the findings. Earlier in the conventional studies, the research was focused only on two types of variables, that is dependent and independent. Only two variables, like in the many examples that I have given in the previous lectures, that poverty breeds crime, or domestic policy determines the foreign policy. All many examples that we have previously discussed, they had one independent and one dependent variable. However, in the reality of life, this does not happen. There are many independent variables which determine the dependent variable. There are many independent variables which determine the independent variable. For example, it is not only the domestic policy which determines the foreign policy also. It may be economic policy also. It may be trade policy also. It may be the principle of, say, non-alignment also. So, there are not one factor or independent variable which determine the dependent variable, but there are many when we study in depth. For example, if we are working on relation between income and consumption, so it may not be only income that may be determining the consumption, but also the size of the family, also in the kind of housing society that they stay, where the family stays, and whether the family has some elders also, old persons, for whom every month some expenditure on medicine is necessary. So there is, of course, when we go on determining the relation between income and consumption, income is the most important factor to determine consumption, but along with this, there are other independent factors also, like I said, size of the family and other factors. So, we have to see to it. If we are studying the drug abuse among youngsters, so there can be many independent variable which may be determining or which may be cause of the determination of drug abuse among youngsters, or which may be influencing the drug abuse among youngsters. It may be lack of parental control, it may be impact of friends, it may be getting excess pocket money, or just for curiosity. So, we observe that when we go to the depth of the problem of research, there are more than one causes or factors or independent variables which determine or which are causes of the phenomena or the problem of research that we are working upon. So, now explaining a dependent variable in terms only one independent variable is not a logical explanation. It would certainly give some kind of inaccurate or incorrect results which would not reflect the realities of the problems that a researcher has chosen to study. This is why we use now the multivariate analysis, which is to encompass all the small and big factors which are influencing the problem of research or the phenomenon under study. And this is why a multivariate analysis is expected to provide more correct assessment, evaluation of the phenomena under study, and it is going to give us a more correct version of the phenomena. In the task of designing research, researcher must give importance to the following factors. Then his research design could be a good design, and the results and the analysis that is received, that is generated out of the research, is going to be logically sound and perfect explanation to the phenomenon. What are those? Number one, the researcher should know how many different points in time the data is to be collected. Is all data to be collected essentially at one time, or there has to be some time lapse between various stages of data collection? The data, whether it has to be one time collection or collection in different stages, because it is the research design which would decide this. For example, a person is convicted of any crime. He may be a kind of, say, he might have committed it in haste or in confusion or whatever may be. He may have done it even for the first time. So, we have to study the adjustment of that offender into the prison. So, one alternative is that we go and collect the data and gather data for his adjustment in the prison at one point of time. But a better design is that we can do it period wise. Like, how did he adjust in the first month? How did he adjust in the first quarter? What was his adjustment process in 1 year, and so on and so forth, in second year or in third year. So that would be a more better design to reflect the adjustment of the offender, convicted person in the prison. Because of course, what was the adjustment in first month and what was in 1 quarter, what was in 1 year, it would reflect the difference. So a better design is to collect the data, the period wise, not of a single period, but of various periods regarding the adjustment of the convicted in the prison. So we have two alternatives to study the adjustment of the prisoner in the prison, either to take one time data or to take period wise data. The research design has to clearly mention and decide how it is to be done. Although a periodic wise would be better, but whether we have resources, financial and human resource wise, to do that kind of collection, what is the time period given to the researcher to complete his research, this would determine whether the data would be collected in one period or in different periods. The research design has to take care of this. Then the researcher must be aware that how many research situations, that is individuals, groups, communities, organizations, etc., will be of his interest, and how are these varied situations to be interrelated. Is one group, one community, one organization has to be compared with other group, community or organization? That has to be mentioned by the research design, taken care of by the research design, because there are individuals, groups, organizations, and they are of all of the interest. Suppose we are doing the electoral studies. These days electoral studies have also become very important in our life. So the researcher has to go to all the parties. He has to consult the supporters of all the parties. The researcher has to, in fact, seek the opinion of all the electorates. So it has to be very clear. Or suppose we are studying some organization. Suppose we are studying, say, United Nations organization or the Say we are studying IMF and World Bank, we are studying the World Trade Organization. Which of these we have to study? Or there is to be a comparative study between WTO and IMF and the World Bank? That has to be studied. There are many organizations which work for the business and industry, like there is FICCI, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, like there is the CII, Conference of the the the, the Indian Conference of the Indian Industry, CII, or the PhD Commerce, Punjab and Haryana Commerce and Industry. There are such type of many organizations. So if, and they are of course interrelated also, because they are working in the same direction for the same purpose, for the development of economy, for the development of trade, for the development of exports. So if they have, we have to study them, we have to very much clearly spell in the design. The good research design has to clearly make a plan about how this study would be done. Then we have also to, the research design has also to take care whether there is some change, the study, the phenomena involves some change, because if there is change involved, then we have to choose the periods. Like we wanted to do in the adjustment of the convicted in the prison, or if suppose we are studying the unemployment, rural unemployment, then should we study it post Manrega or in various periods of Manrega, or if we are studying in the poverty elevation program like IRDP or Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, we have to study, choose a period, whether it has been, how its effectiveness has been since the implementation of Panchayati Raj scheme, or through the empowerment of women in village by reserving 33% seats, 1/3 seats for them in panchayats. Because as we see, women might have been neglected before the implementation of the 1/3 policy in Panchayati Raj system. So if we have to study this kind of research problems, then it is must that we have to gather, we have to fix the various points from where we have to collect the data, because it involves change. So wherever, in whichever phenomena, in whichever research study, there is change involved, the research design must take care of this change and fix the logical periods of the data collection logically. Then it means that it is a good research design. Otherwise, if it does not take care of in the cases where change is involved, then it is not going to give very appropriate results, because the research design did not take care of these characteristics. So a good research design must take care of the changing nature of the phenomenon. Then, is it a comparative research? If it is a comparative research, then also research design has to be developed specifically for that purpose or suited to this purpose, because comparative research requires different designs for each context. Say, in the development patterns of villages or the prisoner adjustment in maximum versus minimum security prisons, each scenario's unique conditions dictate tailored research approaches to capture relevant difference effectively. So, if suppose we want to study, there are prisons which are high security prisons. So, if we are going to study the difference in adjustment of the prisoner in high security prisons and normal prisons, then the research design has to take care of this, because scenario changes, and in the changing scenarios, a good research design must capture relevant differences effectively. Similarly, if we are studying the school living children, between the rural areas and urban areas, a comparative study. What is the pattern of children living in schools in between the course in urban areas and in rural areas? We are going to compare this to the government primary schools, which are both in rural areas and urban areas. So here what happens? The context has changed. The rural context is different. The urban context is different, because the causes which in fact pull the students to be out of the schools in rural areas may not be similar to the causes which pulls out the students out of the schools in urban areas. So, with the change in the context, the cause would change. A good research design must be sensitive to this change of context. And if it is not sensitive, then certainly it is not going to give the appropriate results. This is why a good research design must take care of the contexts also, the different contexts also, under which the comparative research is going to be done. Then next, a very important question for the researcher is, what is the type of research? What is the kind of research that he or she is working upon? Whether it is exploratory, or it is formulative, or it is explanatory, or it is descriptive, it is applied, or it is pure. The research design would be different for different types of research. We cannot simply have one universal design for each type of research. No. In the due course of these lectures, we shall be discussing the different types of research designs which are suited or which are necessary for the different types of the researches. So, a good research design has to take care of this also. What? The types of research that is being undertaken. Of course, the details of this we have to do in the future lectures, but a good research design must take care of the kind or the type of research that is being pursued. Further, a research design appropriate for a particular research problem should also take into consideration such factors like the means of obtaining information, how the information is or the data is going to be collected, obtained, how, whether the availability and skills of the researcher and the staff is appropriate, whether the trained researchers are available, or whether the funds are available to train the research staff, the level of availability of the trained staff or the skilled staff to carry out the research has also to be taken care of by a good research design. Further, a good research design has to be tailored according to the objectives of the problem to be studied. We have already discussed the objectives of the research in one of the previous lectures. Objectives, from the objectives we develop the hypothesis, we find the variables and factors, and according to that the design would be developed. So, a good research design must be made in consonance with the objectives of the problem that is under study. Further, a good research design should also take care of the nature of the problem that is to be studied, because design would change on the nature of the problem. A design which is developed, say, to study the drug addicts cannot be suitable to study the Indian migrant workers. Both designs have to be different. A design which is to be has been developed for the phenomenon of begging cannot be implemented in toto for, say, the study of school leaving children. No. A good research design takes care of the nature of problem, the nature of the phenomena phenomena that the researcher is working upon. And also, a good research design has to take care of the availability of time and budget, that is money, for the research work. A researcher may be very ambitious of working on, say, the problem of drug addiction. But if it is not carried out, implemented within the time period which has been given by the sponsors and within the budget which has been given by the sponsors, then maybe that the research remains incomplete. Mostly, I think it would remain incomplete. And even if he does complete, or he implements or she implements it, say, after a long period of time, then the relevance of this study may reduce sharply. So, and there are some type of researches like the action research, where it has to be done exactly within the time period, because the remedial steps have to be immediately taken, and it is the case of various others also. Like if we are studying the problem of divorce and we are taking 20 years to complete this, then how the policies would be made? Our research is not going to have any impact on the policies of the government, because we have not done it for years. This is to be completed within the stipulated time of, say, 2 years, and then the results have to be published, and the report has to be given to the sponsors, so that the Ministry of Welfare or any ministry which wants to pursue this research may devise policies according to the research outcome and implements these findings timely, which reduces the phenomena of divorce. This is where the time and the budget are very crucial. So, a good research design must take care of such kind of the issues, that is issues of time and budget. Then only it can be an effective research and it can benefit the society. Thank you very much. I hope that I have been able to clearly explain the characteristics of a good research design. I thank you again.